So, welcome back to the session on Module 3 of Principles of Management, wherein we have seen in the previous session about the managerial roles, and we also had some insight on emotional intelligence, and then we did discuss in detail about the decision making process. Yeah. So, we have seen in decision making, a manager has to look into various internal factors as well as the external factors. So, when it comes to internal factors, we have seen various elements, and in the external factors the manager has to take into consideration the economic conditions, the market, the legal, the political, the technological factors into cognizance. Then we also had some idea about individual and group dynamics. Risk and uncertainty can also influence on decision making, and we did understand about the rational decision making versus the intuitive decision making. Then we also had some insight on the techniques or the tools for decision making, where we discussed about the decision trees, the SWOT analysis, the cost benefit analysis, the Pareto analysis, the decision matrix, the brainstorming sessions by the experts, the scenario analysis, the decision support system, the risk management system, the group decision making techniques as well we have seen. And then we moved on to the next topic of the second part of this module, which talks about decision making, wherein we saw some of the key principles for effective decision making in crisis situations. The principles are, an organization needs to establish a clear leadership to handle the crisis, and that leader should have the enough data, reliable data and accurate data to take a good decision. They should prioritize the decision making, adopt a flexible approach and adaptive approach, utilize the crisis management framework, engage in scenario planning to take the decision, communicate effectively to all the parties or the stakeholders, and consider ethical and moral implications of your decision making on the other stakeholders as well, learn from past crises, provide support and care for stakeholders also. Now, after that we had a discussion on ethical consideration in management decision making, wherein certain ethical consideration has to be given importance, like respect for stakeholders, integrity and honesty with the manager ought to have. A manager ought to be transparent and accountable for his action on others, fairness and justice, social responsibility, right, and conflict of interest should be taken care, should encourage the whistleblower or protection to be given to the whistleblowers in the organization. Then ethical leadership has to be encompassed. Then we also did, I took you all through the improving decision making skills, like increasing the self awareness, developing the critical thinking, seeking information and knowledge, manage your own emotions, practice decision making techniques as we have discussed in the previous. Consider the long term consequences of your decisions on the stakeholders or the organization, seek the input and feedback, practice decision making under pressure so that you will be able to combat any challenges, learn from experience and have continuous improvement in the organization, balance analysis with your intuition. Now, today session we will just move on with the further concepts, which is the last part of this module, which talks about rational decision making models. Now, what are rational decision making models? These are models which will help a manager to systematically take a decision by approaching to certain problem in a very systematic manner. So, these are the approaches which are used by the individuals or the groups to make an optimal decisions based on logical reasoning and analysis. So, here they are grounded in the idea that decision makers aim at maximizing the outcome by selecting the most favorable alternative course of action among the available options. this step goes on like this, how rational decision making models are taken. So, there are different models of rational decision making. The first model talks about the classical decision model. They are also known as rational economic model. In this, first they identify the problem or decisions which has to be made. Once the problem is identified, generate all the possible alternatives. When you generate other alternatives, evaluate each alternative with cost benefit analysis. Select the best alternative which has got the highest value or the utility. This is what is the first model, economic model or rational economic model, classical decision model. Then the next model we have is the bounded rationality model. Bounded rationality model recognizes that decision makers often faces certain limitations in information. It could be in time, or it could be in terms of capacity, right. So, what is the step under bounded rationality model? Identify a limited set of alternatives that are feasible or satisfactory rather than exhaustive alternatives. Apply simplified decision criteria to quickly evaluate those alternatives. Select the first alternative that meet your requirements or satisfy your goals. That is bounded rationality model, where we work with knowing that there is limitation of availability of time, the resources or the informations or your capacity. Knowing that limitation, you work with your decisions. Then we have something known as optimization model. This model emphasizes the use of quantitative analysis and optimization techniques to identify the best possible solution among the alternatives. Like we have PERT and CPM, right. Through this PERT and CPM technique, you try to find out the best way to reach certain destination, taking into consideration the constraints. So, the step goes on for this optimization model like this: define the decision variables, objectives and the constraints. Formulate a mathematical model to represent the decision problem. Apply the optimization techniques such as linear programming, PERT, CPM, simulation. Evaluate the solution and implement whichever it is feasible, the best, shortest way. That is about the optimization model. Then we have the fourth rational decision making model, which is known as expected utility theory. Based on the fact that decision makers are rational and they seek to maximize the maximum utility with each alternative given, this model incorporates subjective preferences and probability of outcome. This is expected utility theory. The steps are: assess the value associated with possible outcome of each decision, estimate the probability of different outcomes occurring, calculate expected utility of each alternative by multiplying each utility outcome by its probability, select the alternative which gives you the highest utility. That is about the rational decision making. Moving on with the next aspect, consensus building technique. When you are working in the organization, you are always working in a team. So, you cannot go with I factor, rather we should work with V factor. Now, to move on with this V factor, we need to have a common understanding. Having a common understanding, we call it as consensus. Now, how to build this? There are certain techniques. The techniques goes on with active listening. The members or the group in an individual, every individual in a team or a group patiently listens to others' views, opinions. They demonstrate empathy and understanding. That is, active listening is one technique. Conflict resolution. The group addresses the conflicts constructively, leading to win-win situation for both the parties. Facilitation. The facilitator in the group will moderate the discussion and help the group to arrive at a common decision. Consensus seeking. Here the group members agree to support the final decision, that is what we call it as consensus seeking. Compromise. When you know that, when the members in the group know that it is not possible to win all the time, by letting go of certain benefits of yours, you are not going to lose something more. Rather, they are willing to adjust to the preferences of others and find a common ground to reach an agreement. That is what we call it as compromise. Voting. Where consensus cannot be attained or reached, the group may use the voting mechanism to manage or take a decision. Multi-criteria decision analysis. The group will use structured way to evaluate the alternatives and allow for systematic comparison of options. So, these are some of the consensus based decision making. Now, what are the benefits of this group decision making and consensus building? Having understood consensus building, now what are the benefits of it? The benefit is diverse perspective. When you have expertise in your group, each individual is contributing his opinion, his thought, his ideas, his messages, and this discussion in a group will leverage a collective knowledge, expertise, experiences of members, leading to more innovative solution. Ownership and buy-in. When group members are encouraged to put forth their ideas and opinions, they own the responsibility for it. Enhanced creativity. When you encourage brainstorming session amidst your group members, that can stimulate creativity and idea generation, fostering innovation in the organization, giving a solution to the problem, a complex problem. Improved problem solving. Now, a group process encourages critical thinking, analysis, and helps to lead to more effective problem solving. Building relationship. Collaborative decision making will enhance the morale of the employees because you are reinforcing the trust and the confidence among them, and it would avoid any kind of cohesion, and it will build a camaraderie among group member, and it will strengthen the relationship among the people and will enhance the network, the team network. Increased transparency. Open discussion and consensus technique will promote accountability and transparency because every individual is owing for what the decisions they are contributing. With the benefits, there are certain challenges of group decision making and consensus building. Now, what are those challenges? Let us just try to understand. Time consuming. Group members come with diverse culture and everyone wants their opinions to be heard, right? Now, this process can be time consuming, it might require extensive discussion, and you might not be able to take the right decisions at the right time. That could be a great challenge. Conflicts and tensions, differences of opinion, disagreements may lead to conflicts and tensions within the group as well, hindering to consensus building efforts. Group thinking. When you force your group members to come out with their thoughts, this can also lead to suppressing any individual's thoughts as well, leading to poor decision outcomes. Dominance of certain members. Some members in the group can always dominate the others or influence the decisions of outcomes. That can demotivate the others also. Compromise on quality. Compromising on the quality because non-availability of the information or non-competence of the group members can always compromise on the quality of the decisions that is taken in the organization. Resistance to change could also pose a challenge in group decision making and consensus building. Because as I said earlier, change is constant, but people are reluctant to change. So adaptability is very less. Initially there will always be resistance to that. Right? So these are some of the challenges of group decision making. So to conclude, we had discussions on managerial skills and decision making on various other components of managerial roles and skills. We have also seen the 10 major roles of Henry Mentzberg's managerial roles. Then we also had a discussion on essential managerial skills, emotional intelligence in management, decision making process, and we also had a discussion in the last part in today's class on rational decision making models, bounded rationality decisions making in uncertainty environments and all that. Then we also had an understanding of group decision making and consensus building. What are the benefits of group decision making and consensus building? With all the benefits, there are also challenges of group decision making and consensus building as well. So with this, I conclude with this module. So thank you all.